guys, it's EliteFerrex, and today we're making a special celebration video. This weekend I hit 500 subscribers on the channel, so as my way of saying thank you to all of you guys, I'm going to be making a deep dive video on one of my older 8-bit tracks from the album I Dream in Pixels called Toxic Love. So I have the project all queued up here, and I'm going to go through the different patterns and things I put together for the song and kind of give you guys sort of an in-depth look at how I made the track. So I guess let's get started. Here we go. So that's our song. So this song is kind of broken down into a few separate parts, the first being this intro section here. Then we have where we actually get into the beat of the song. Where our melody first takes off here. Sort of our second, I don't know what you would call it, a refrain or something here before the chorus begins. Then again, a quick break before we get into the main chorus of the song. And of course the chorus itself. So let's start taking this apart. We'll start with the introduction here at the beginning. So you notice we've got a few simple patterns laid out. The first one here, this pattern 4, has only 3 things in it, and they are kick instruments. So you see here one is a triangle kick, like I've used in many of the other songs. You can see the settings we have here, triangle, negative switch, and a .042 sweep time. You'll notice that is also true for this tri-kick number 2. Here, so we've got both of those. One of those should be a square. Here it is. Tri-kick 2 is a square. So like I've mentioned before, usually I will use a triangle as one of them and a square as the other with the same sweep setting, and that gives us the kick sound. And then this here is NES VST, which is another plugin that I found. And it has an inbuilt kick sound, which you'll hear if I set this to loop with just that sound. So I put that together with the other two to make our kick sound. So there's that, and that's all that's on that first pattern there is just a single kick. So we've got it here, here, and here. We have our other percussive instruments here using these noise channels. And so if I bring those back on, you'll be able to hear those. Oops, sorry, here we go. Now this one you'll hear I actually did use FL Studio's mixer ability a little bit for these channels. You can hear them echoing a little bit using the Fruity Reverb plugin, specifically on the clap plugin here. So if we go look at the reverb, you notice this is using Reverb 1, which I don't use anymore. I usually use Reverb 2 now, but I have it set to just 1% reverb with a little bit longer decay time and everything, just to give it a little bit more ambiance. And again, the reason I do that is because without that, the clap can sound a little bit harsh on the ears. So you'll kind of hear it here if I do this. This is with the reverb. Whereas if I turn the reverb off, it's not as bad because the volume is a little bit lower, but sometimes that has a tendency to be a little bit rough on the ears. So anyway, but this is our basic percussion pattern here. We just have a low, kind of a... And then we add this kick in with it. I'm sorry, clap, not kick. And that's the basics for the percussion here at the beginning. You'll notice if we just do these percussion channels, oops, that's really all you hear here at the beginning. Just that simple thing. Now here is our basis for the kind of a background harmony that plays in the background while it's going, which is just these two channels here. They're called 12.5%, but you see again they're actually squares. Sometimes I start them off a certain way and then later on change how they sound for something else. And so it's just these two spaced left to right again, so that for this one plugin with just these two instruments, this is what we get. And again, they are left to right. So very simple there. And then this pattern 18 is where our bass comes in. And I've used 3 different instruments. We have a triangle here, no negatives or sweep time or anything, just plain and simple. Not even any use of decay or sustain, just simple notes here. The only change I've done is I've taken the notes from full length and I've shortened them down a smidge, as you can see, which looks like I used a 1/6 to shorten those. A couple of 1/6 actually. So anyway, there's our triangle of the bass. Here is a 25%, which uses the same length of notes there along with it. And triangle sample, this is one of the default settings for FamiSynth here that you can access by going to the list here, and triangle sample, there it is. Now, it's been a very long time, so I don't recall if I made any changes to the default setting there, but nonetheless, this is what our bass sounds like. Right, and then here, pattern 36 is a FamiSynth instrument here. You can see it's the, well here, I'll just play it. So this is our simple sine wave. We've used a 4-bit bit rate there, given it the change the settings on the envelope generator here, the decay, sustain, and release, to give it kind of a soft plinking sound, but not so quiet that we can't hear it, and that's kind of what creates the soft lead at the beginning here. And that's it for the introduction section. So we've got our building noise channel here, which we talked about in a different video. And a crash here, which I used the noise channels here to kind of build up. And then the noise fire, which is another preset that comes with FamiSynth. And what you do is, you'll notice if you hit the key, it has that kind of grumbly noise. And if we change the wave shape, it changes the way it sounds. So we've got some different options there. And so I put that together along with this one, so that together with all of them at once, we have this kind of sound, almost like you get from Contra or something like that. So there's that part. Here, you'll notice for this one, we have a little bit of background notes here. So these are just roughly a FamiSynth's equivalent of 12.5%. Again, I know the channel says 25, but like I said, I change things around and sometimes I don't adjust the channel names there. But what we're doing is we're just taking this simple pattern and switching it from left to right. I'll temporarily remove the reverb here so you can hear what the notes sound like a little clearer. So just a very quick set of notes there to kind of help fill in the spaces as we go along. And that channel is just repeated across all 4 sections here. Now at this point of the track, we also add in our 12.5s in the background, like I've said before, kind of like strings. Nothing too complicated. And these instruments here, we keep. These are basically exactly the same as what we had before. And here. And you notice all of those stay the same until we get to the first part where the main melody kicks in. These background notes here go away. And we instead bring in the lead instruments here. So let's talk about what happens here. You'll notice we have this FamiSynth channel again here, and it is centered. It's not panned off to the left or right, and so this is where we start. Here we have another FamiSynth, another sine wave that we've it's similar to what we had at the beginning here with this instrument. Oh, and actually you'll notice it's on the exact same channel, so it's the same sound that we've used for 2 different purposes. Here for kind of a soft lead, and here we use for kind of these plinking background notes. So there's that. Now, as we get halfway through this long pattern here, we switch from using a single instrument for the 25 lead here in FamiSynth. Oops, sorry, let me solo this. Till we get right before the end, and then, like I've done in other tracks, we switch into a left and right synth to help fill it up a little. Let me make sure those are on. And here we go. You'll notice the transition right here. And that's really it. Then to finish off this pattern, we have these square notes here, just to kind of give us a little bit of a transition before we move into the next instrument. And I'll talk about why I did this in a minute. So there, you notice we've got square notes, which is not something that we really have in any of these others. Which again, I'll play this, and you notice we don't really have a strong square note coming out. But right here at the end, we use that because when we get here, now we have a square synth that starts the next melody line. So we use that little use of square notes right here at the end to get us ready for the next transition into the next part of the song. there's a couple other things that happened at this point in the song that I need to point out really quickly. First, I mentioned we started off with this percussion section here. And then as we moved in here, we moved to a percussion channel that adds an extra hit of percussion in here just to kind of speed it up. Just to kind of pick up the speed of the song and help it feel like it's getting started. And also now our kick channel has gone from being a single kick there to using all four to fill it up, so that we go from, let's do this, so that we go from this right at the beginning and instead move into this here. Sorry, that was really bad. Let's try this again. So again, transition from slower to now here. So not much has changed there, but just a little bit to kind of help us keep the song moving and changing as we move along. So let's get back to over here now that we talked about that change in percussion. So now we get to this section here and it sounds much different. We've got these kind of ambient, so mildly echoey square notes, which again, I did use FL Studio's default reverb plugin here to achieve that, because that was before I was quite as familiar with some of the other ways I could do it. But while this instrument is playing here, you notice in the background we have these other notes going on. And so if we move up here to the top, we have these triangle leads, left and right, that we've used to kind of fill up the background there. Because you notice back here, we had these 12.5s, the string sound. But now that we moved over here, we don't have those anymore. So to kind of help fill in that empty space, we use these instead. So they're really doing two purposes there. They're filling up the, they're filling in that space that the, I'm sorry, the 12.5% strings were doing before, and it's also preparing us for when the melody comes back together so that it doesn't sound like as harsh a transition. So I'll play it all again and maybe you can hear what I'm talking about. Where here we've got the full sound, here it breaks down, and then these notes here get us ready for what's to come. So they sort of set us up there. Now you notice they serve another purpose as well, that here on our bass track, we've got our same three bass instruments. And that these triangle notes on this pattern actually sync up with those bass notes there. So let's see if we can do this. We'll turn on only these two and go back to the bass. And I'll just play just the triangle section, and you'll hear how they kind of build with each other. So just kind of expanding the sound up a little bit there. And then once we get to the second half here, nothing else really changes except that one, we add back in our strings in the background here. Two, we go from this section here with these notes, just kind of going back and forth. To now, having them both play on left and right at the same time with notes that harmonize together. So, and you can hear how those kind of go along with the changes in the bass notes, and I think they actually do a pretty good job as we go through here, so you can hear what those sound like together. Oh, did I not turn that one on? There we go. All right, here we go. So you'll be able to hear those two kind of playing off of each other. So there's that. We've got our background strings here to go along with them. And then lastly, we've got here our main notes from the Fami synth that go in there. These ones, which, as I said before, build on with the bass notes, and then our actual lead here, which works together. We've got this one, which is still centered, and this one is a square instrument, and these two on the sides, which are 25%. So now we've got a full surround sound kind of going on there. So, and then we've got all this together. So this will be everything besides the percussion channels. So one last change I will mention here, just to note that between this pattern and the next one, is again, we started off with just the square instrument here and these background ones that kind of build with the bass. And then when we get to this one, you notice these are still the same here. Except now we've added in these other two to build along with it. So that's kind of how we've built it up as we've gone along. And then once we get there, we have this small break before we get back to the full loop around. And what we really do here is just very similar to how we started. Except we're using some different instruments. Now this is, I believe, one of the only places in the song where we use this saw lead. Which, as you see, is this setting here, which you can actually hear if I solo this. And still, we've got this one here to kind of help us along. Little one at the end there is to get us ready for this next pattern here. So trying to keep that flow to where things don't sound broken apart or like they are, too separate from one another. So I'll play this kind of whole section here again before we get to the main chorus of the song, and then we'll kind of take that one apart as well. So this is a very interesting part of the song. We take a lot of different elements and combine them together to get that really full sound that we have. So here's the first part here, this first pattern, and you'll recognize the sound, of course. And these go along with the bass again. We've got our strings here, our 12.5 strings, except now you notice, whereas here we have them on a single channel, centered. Here, to help fill it up and make it sound different, I've now split it into left and right again. So you can hear the difference in the sound when we move from here. Let's isolate just these ones. From here. And again, we do that to kind of help spread the sound out and keep the notes from canceling each other out too much. So yeah, it's just one other little change that we do. Now, so we had these other notes here. Oops. There we go. We've got just these ones here. Kind of filling up the background. We've got our strings here filling up the background. We've got our bass driving along the low end of the song. Right, we've got our same percussion channels up here. Now again, doing their thing. Our kicks and... and now you see we've added in another little instrument in here to help keep things moving. So if we look, here is how our percussion started at the very beginning. Once the song itself got going after just the intro, we added in these notes here. And then once we get into the chorus, when things need to speed up even more, we just add in these extra little notes here. And you can see they're very quiet, but it's just enough to help bring the speed up from here to now full speed. And that's all we've really done with the percussion. Nothing else besides that really changes much. So then we've just got the lead channel here where kind of the magic happens. Let's bring all these sounds back in. All right, so we start off with these two FamiSynth channels here, as you heard. And then now we've got all these other notes in the background, right about here. Now that's a lot of sounds at once, so in order to do that, you see here we've got the left saw lead, which if I isolate just that, let's isolate just these two, the left and right, you'll hear them. Oh, sorry, I turned off the other, I apologize. Here we go. And that goes along with our central ones here. To really fill up that sound. Now we're getting ready to loop back around, so just to kind of help transition between the sound we had here back to the beginning, we have this last little section here. Because as we get back here, you remember this is the way we started. And so then here we use these instruments again at the very end of this channel to help transition us back to the way we started. And that's really it. Then we just loop through the song. So again, now that we've gone through each of the individual steps of the change, I'll play the song through one more time and you can try and listen for the different changes. And here we go. Oop, might be helpful if I turned all the instruments back on, huh? All right, here we go. And so that's really it. So yeah, there's kind of our sort of deep dive for this song here. Hopefully you found this helpful or informational or just cool to listen to. I may do other videos like this in the future, but I would like to, I'm looking for other kinds of videos to start putting up on my channel. I had some people request that I actually do live composition and post that online. I've thought about it. The only thing is I haven't had a lot of time recently to make new music, just due to work and other things. But I have considered it in the future. So anyway, that's one of the things I'm looking at. But anyway, hopefully again that you enjoyed this, and again, really I appreciate you guys watching the channel and subscribing, so thank you again for hitting the 500 subscriber mark, and I look forward to making new content for you guys in the future. Stick around, and thanks for watching.